Hey everyone, Chairman here on behalf of Trustless Collectibles to showcase my take on a competitive Kaguya build. Kaguya has been out in Japanese for more than half a year already, and there are many different viable builds. But by far the most popular build has been the standby gate build, and for good reason. The deck takes full advantage of all the powerful cards in Kaguya and combines it in a seamless game plan from level 0 to level 3. Let's get right to the deck list. Starting at level 0, we run 6 strong turn 1 plays with 4 K runners and 2 Kaguya runners. K runner is one of the best cards in the set, and a big reason why Kaguya is so dominant at level 0. Her first effect is commonly known as Clean Cut. When she reverses a battling opponent, she must rest another Shu-Chin character and move it to an open position in the back row. This is a very powerful effect that can save characters from being reversed on the opponent's turn and preserve card advantage. She's a mill runner, which means at the start of your opponent's attack phase, you may put the top card of your deck into the waiting room. And if it's a Shu-Chin character, or the event A Romantic Battle of the Brains, she can move to any open position in the front row. If she manages to escape being reversed, and then score a reverse herself and save a character, she's a +2 all by herself for no cost, which is insane. She's a big reason to play this deck. As for the Kaguya runners, I like to have other options in case I don't open with a K. Kaguya runner has its own merits as well. It can reverse any level 0 card when it gets reversed, and it doesn't need to hit a mill target in order to run anywhere in the front row. Kaguya runner can also deal with threats that are too big for K to reverse, in case I don't have any way to give K lots of power. Speaking of giving K lots of power, the next card on the list can do just that. I maxed 4 copies of the Chica Double Rare because this card has incredible synergy with K and is also a fantastic card by herself. Her first effect allows her to reveal the top card of your deck, and if it's a Shu-Chin character, you can choose any character to give 2000 power. Usually I'm giving this power to K so that she can get over all but the biggest level 0s. Chica can even choose herself and attack at a respectable 3000 power. Her second effect is commonly known as a Riki effect. You can pay 1 stock and clock the top card of your deck to search your deck for any level 1 or lower character and add it to your hand. Great for grabbing key cards in the early game without losing hand. Usually I resolve the second effect before the first one, so I can have information about what the top card of my deck is. But if I don't care about that information and I want a slightly better chance of getting the power, I'll use the top deck reveal effect first. The next card on our list can also give Kaguya power. The Kaguya PR card can rest itself to assign 1000 power anywhere, which is helpful to get the reverses that this deck wants, especially at levels 0 and 1. Additionally, the other effect is extremely important for this deck. She has a brainstorm effect that can be used multiple times a turn. Just pay 1 stock to mill 4 cards, and for every climax hit, you can salvage a card from your waiting room and discard a card from hand. Kaguya as a set in general has limited options for both milling and hand fixing, and this card solves both issues in one effect. This is really important, and without it, there will be games where this deck will be unable to get out of a bad deck state and take a lot of damage as a result. For utility cards, I start with 3 copies of the Hayasaka Drop Search. The Drop Search effect is, when this card is played from hand, pay 1 stock and discard a card to search your deck for a Shu-Chin character. This card is a resonance requirement for 2 of the cards I run in this list, so it's important to have 1 in hand at all times. Luckily, this also has the effect when you play a climax, you can return this from the board to your hand to give a character 2000 power. Even more power is great, and the bounce back effect not only allows me to use its search effect and still get it back to my hand, but it also opens up stage positions to standby cards into. It's a fantastic card that synergizes well with the standby climax and all the cards that want to reverse opponents for effects. Next is 1 copy of the Climax Swap Kaguya. The Climax Swap effect allows you to pay 1 stock and discard a climax to salvage any climax from your waiting room, allowing you to swap to the climax you want. It's helpful in this deck since I don't run any ways to draw extra cards, so this can help us get the right climax when we need to, especially at level 3. The first effect allows you to look at the top 2 cards of your deck and rearrange them freely, which is great because it allows us to put any standby trigger we see on the second from the top, so we can trigger it on the second attack and not on the first. Anybody who's played with standby knows how tragic a first attack standby trigger can be, so the top 2 rearrange effect is great to have. Lastly, we have 1 copy of the Stock Swap Double Rare Kaguya. She can pay 3 stock on play to force the opponent to replace their stock with cards from the top of their deck, which is key to disrupting stock compression and forcing climaxes out of their deck. Just having this card forces the opponent to play around it or get destroyed. The second effect is a twin drive effect. When this card attacks, you can pay 1 stock to trigger 2 times instead of 1. You end up with the same amount of stock, but you have twice the chance to trigger soul triggers and climaxes. And you get to pay out stock during your attack phase, which can be useful. For example, if you use this top 2 rearrange to put a standby climax second, you can attack with this third to pay it out. At level 1, I run 4 copies of the Kaguya level 1 climax combo. When she attacks with a standby climax in play, you can look at the top card of the deck, and if you do, it gets put under her as a marker. Her second ability activates whenever she reverses a character. You can send a marker underneath her to the waiting room to search your deck for a character. All the level 0 cards that pump power help Kaguya get reverses with the combo. In particular, the Hayasaka Drop Search has a lot of synergy since I'm playing a climax anyways. Because the climax combo gives the marker, I can direct attack, get a marker, then get the reverse later, potentially on the opponent's turn. The combo is honestly nothing incredible on its own, but the ability to play standby at level 1 and potentially get a few pluses on top of that is great and sets the deck up for the rest of the game. Also, since the combo markers a card from top deck, the combo mills twice as many cards as a traditional search combo, which is a positive, because free mill is always good first deck. The main reason why we want to play standby at level 1 is to standby out the 1/1 Kaguya back row as soon as possible. She gives 500 power for every level to the characters in front of her, and she has a resonance ability to pay 1, rest herself, reveal the Hayasaka Drop Search from your hand, and you can look at the top 3 cards of your deck and add a Shuching character from among them to your hand. Once I get this card out, I basically try to use the effect every turn to efficiently get cards into my hand, and it also helps me control my deck state and mill towards a refresh when I need to. The power is very relevant in this deck with big standby targets and early play level 3s. If I have to hard play this card from hand, it's not a big deal. I still do it to get the effect and power online as soon as possible. My secondary game plan at level 1 is the 1/0 Shirogane. It gets 2500 power and 1 level if there's a Kaguya on board, and it gets another 1000 with experience 2. So it's a 6500 power level 2 with all conditions met. With the 1/1 back row, he sits at a nice 7500 power and can wall off some level 1 boards. This card definitely shines in certain matchups and is less useful in others, so knowing the matchup can help determine whether grabbing this card is worthwhile or not. Even in matchups where it's not relevant, I can always level it for experience. Finally, at level 1, I run 1 copy of the 1/0 backup that gives 2000 power to a battling character. I think having the option in the deck is important, so I can direct attack with the Kaguya level 1 combo, get a marker, and then threaten a reverse and search on my opponent's turn. It's also good for protecting the level 1 Shirogane. I only run 1 copy, but between the drop search and the level 1 combo, I can usually grab it if I want it. At level 2, I run 3 copies of the 2/2 Ishigami. He gets 1000 power for every other Shuching character, and he has hand encore, so when he gets sent to the waiting room, you can discard a character from your hand and return him to the field. A solid standby target at level 1 that stays around for basically the entire game. It's really easy to keep him on field with the 1/1 level support that constantly refuels your hand. And with the back row, he hits 11,000 power, which challenges other standby decks and early play level 3 cards. I don't usually prioritize him, but he's a solid card to standby out when I have the chance. Next, I run 2 copies of the refresh counter. It's a 2500 power counter, and when you use it, you can pay an additional 2 stock to return your waiting room to your deck and shuffle. I really like refresh counters because it's a reactive solution to bad compression, and it allows me to recover from triggering too many climaxes. Also, if you use it when you're close to refreshing, it acts like a pseudo heal because you won't be taking refresh damage. Even if I'm not using the refresh effect, it's still a 2500 power counter that protects my early play level 3s and standby targets, so I always want to have it in my hand. Some people don't like using the refresh effect because it eats into their resources at level 3, which is true, but you gain a lot of advantages at level 2, so it's a trade-off. My personal playstyle favors stabilizing and dominating the board at 2, so I tend to prioritize and value the refresh counter more. If you want to play more for level 3, then you can prioritize it less. At level 3, I run a number of early play options that get -1 level in hand when you have 2 or fewer climaxes in waiting room, which allows them to impact the game at level 2. The 3/2K has the ability, when you play it, you can discard a card from hand to heal the top card of your clock to stock. This kind of heal is great for decks that can build a lot of hand, which this deck does very well. The healing allows us to prolong our level 2 game and extend the damage lead. Great card, though I usually end up leveling one of her for experience. The next early play is 3-2 Shirogane, which is in my opinion one of the best cards in the set. He gets 4,500 power on play until the end of your opponent's next turn, and he prevents both players from using backups until then, which usually means that if he's bigger than his opponent, he's going to get the reverse. He also has an effect that requires experience 4, which means having cards in your level that have 4 or more levels total. If you meet this condition, he has an effect when he reverses an opponent to pay 2 and discard a card from hand to send his opponent to the clock, also known as clock kick. The combination of these abilities means that he can hard to remove just about anything, giving the deck a clear advantage at level 2. He does very well against other decks that try to play big cards at level 2 because he's usually bigger, but against decks that don't early play or standby, he's less valuable. In those matchups, I usually level him for experience and or use him as a finisher at level 3 instead. One thing to note though is that since you cannot play backups on this card until the end of your opponent's next turn, you can't protect him with your counters, so just keep that in mind. Since both of these have the same early play condition, it's possible to miss the condition and be locked out of the level 2 game. If you want to guarantee the condition, you can use a refresh counter on the opponent's second to last or last attack to guarantee a clean waiting room with at most 2 climaxes in it. However, this requires a lot of stock and might not be efficient. A plan B of the deck is to just standby out the level 3s at level 2. The best card being the trial deck 3-2 Kaguya. She gives all your Shuchin characters 1500 power, including herself, if she's in your front row, which makes her the perfect card to standby out during combat. Additionally, she has an on-attack ability to pay 1 and discard a card to mill the bottom 3 cards of your opponent's deck and burn for the number of climaxes milled. This finishing effect is great against a compressed deck, but also allows me to pay out climaxes during the attack phase. Her global power combined with the 1-1 back row makes our level 2 board huge, even the Ishigami. If I can get out both the early plays and stand by this Kaguya, then the deck is just winning. Finally, the last card in our list is the 3-2 double rare Kaguya. When she's played from hand, she can heal the top card of the clock, and she has 2 abilities that deal damage and help the deck close out games. The first effect is the climax combo. On attack, pay 1 to deal 1 damage and gain 2000 power until the end of your opponent's next turn. The second effect is a resonance. When she reverses an opponent, discard 1 and reveal the Hayasaka drop search to deal 1 damage. If both effects are resolved, that's pay 1, discard 1 to burn 1 twice, which is excellent. If you can play 3 and get all the effects off, that's a very powerful finishing turn. However, in practice, it can be difficult to get reverses, as opponents can simply crash their board in to deny reverses. Personally, I don't usually go for a triple combo turn, and instead use her more to heal and push incremental damage. With the back row and the TD Kaguya, she can get quite big, especially with the climax combo. I can also stand by her out at level 2 to save resources, and even use the combo at level 2. I usually only do this after I already have a TD Kaguya on the board. One thing to remember is that the resonance burn effect can activate on the opponent's turn, which makes her very scary to attack into, and makes backups even more valuable, as they can become ways to deal damage on the opponent's turn as well. So now that I've gone over the cards, I just want to run through a quick game progression guide of what the deck is trying to do. At level 0, I want to mulligan for my premium level 0 cards, like K and Chika. I will generally only keep level 0s, Standby Climax, and 1-0 Kaguya. On my first turn, I usually play 1 to 2 runners, maybe a Chika if I have an extra copy in hand and I need to reverse something. This deck doesn't want to Trifield level 0 usually because K is only a +2 if it can successfully get a reverse and run away from an opponent. I normally level a level 3 card going into level 1 so I can meet experience requirement for 1-0 Shirogane. So either the double rare Kaguya, the K, or the Shirogane, depending on the matchup and what I have in hand for color. At level 1, the plan is to play our 1-0 Kaguyas and 1-0 Shiroganes and standby out either the 1-1 back row or a 2-2 Ishigami. Once I get a 1-1 back row out, either playing it from hand or via standby, I can use the resonance effect every turn to build advantage and get good refresh timings. I leveled the other color I didn't level at 1 and tried to hit experience 4 for 3-2 Shirogane. At level 2, I try to play as many 3-2 Ks as I can to create a damage lead. only playing 3-2 Shirogane to break my opponent's board. Any standby I trigger here ideally is putting 3-2 Kaguya on the board, and I try to hold a refresh counter or salvage it with a gate in case of an emergency. By the time I hit level 3, my opponent should be close to dead, so any combination of TD Kaguya, 3-2 Shirogane, and double rare Kaguya will help me close out the game. If I need to stall it out at level 3, I can continue to play healers until I'm ready to push for lethal. Now, there are a lot of other options that this deck can run, and I want to go over some important alternatives that work better against certain decks and for certain playstyles. The first card that I need to mention is this 2-1 Kaguya. She can resonance with the Hayasaka drop search to gain 6,000 power at the start of climax phase, making her a 12,500 attacker, which is huge. Additionally, when she reverses a level 2 or higher battling opponent, she can put the top card of your deck into stock, so she could refund the cost of playing her. She's a great addition to the level 2 game plan of the deck, and is particularly helpful if the deck misses the early play condition. This is the card that I want to put in the deck the most, and I think there's definitely room for her to come in. Another card that is a viable option is the 3-2 Chika back row. She gives 2,000 power to all characters in front of her. While her other effects aren't useful in this deck because there are no events, the raw power from this card can help against other board-based matchups. She's the perfect 5th card on the board to standby out at level 2 and make the board near unkillable. An interesting card to consider is this 0-0 Kaguya. Her first effect is on play, pay 1 to swap a card in your level with a card in your hand. This can be useful to get experience requirement, but it is also useful in the late game to grab a level 3 that was leveled for experience. It can be an easy way to grab that 3rd Kaguya you need. Her second effect is act, pay 1, and send this to the waiting room to look at up to the top 4 cards of your deck and add a Shuchin character to hand. This is useful to mill out the deck while grabbing key cards and can help the deck refresh well. It's also an interesting standby target that can turn into another playable. The last card I want to mention is the level 0 Ishigami. His first effect gives another Shuchin character 2,000 power on attack, and his second effect allows him to pay 1 at the start of the opponent's attack phase to run away to an empty back row position. I'm a big fan of this profile and I really like playing it in other decks. It's a great option if you need even more power. As for cards to remove, I think a potential place to cut is actually one copy of the 1-0 Kaguya combo. It might sound strange, but generally speaking, the deck doesn't resolve triple combo at level 1, and the card has a very small window where it is useful. Just resolving even one search is usually enough, so there's no need to run for it outside of consistency. And that's it for this video. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to tap the like and subscribe button if you want to see more content like this in the future. There will be a gameplay video of this deck in action against another top English deck on the channel, so be sure to check that out as well. See you next time!